We are live for the soft launch of our new show here, Nick Valencia Live. This is pretty exciting stuff, guys. We will wait a little bit for people to join in, and then we'll get started in just a little bit. But thank you guys, everybody who's showing up. We're going to have a great conversation here, hopefully. This is the soft launch of my new program, Nick Valencia Live, here on Substack. And we're going to have a conversation today. Part of what I want to do with this new platform is take advantage of those that are watching me. I have a very wide-ranging audience, people who are self-described progressives, people who are self-described Republicans, conservatives, people who are part of this MAGA and MAHA movement, and they all read and watch. And I feel as though it's my obligation, especially in this new independent space, to meet them where they are and show the willingness to have a conversation with people who I may fundamentally disagree with. I think you can tell from the reporting that I put out there that I have an issue, not just as a journalist, but also as an American citizen, of what we're seeing on the streets of Los Angeles happen. ICE raids, suspected federal agents, people who don't identify themselves and show up at scenes wearing masks, without warrants, without documents. And we've heard eyewitness testimony of people just literally being grabbed and taken and put into a van. So we're going to be joined here by somebody who sees no issue with this, somebody who supports President Trump, saw that this was something that he campaigned on, and felt like this was something that he wanted and was willing to accept. And so let's invite them into the conversation right now here. And while we wait for them, we'll just get going. So I see you guys in the chat, there's a handful of you guys joining here right now. I really, really appreciate everyone who's joined in. If you have, if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have something that you'd like to talk about related to our coverage, what we've been talking about for the last several weeks as ICE raids have erupted across the city of Los Angeles. One of the things that I want to make clear as well is, for those that are not in LA, it's not the entire city that is in this uproar. It really is these barrios, these neighborhoods, pockets of LA that are predominantly people of color, predominantly Latino, people that are undocumented from Mexico, from Central America. We're still waiting here for Joel Cavazos to join. Hopefully he can get this going here. I want to bring him into the conversation so we can ask him some questions. I'm curious about how you could see what's happening here on the streets of LA and not be concerned, just simply as an American citizen, just from what I've described. Warrantless arrests, federal agents. You saw what happened yesterday at MacArthur Park, which appeared to be a raid fit for reality TV. And for those who read our reporting on it yesterday, we've talked to some activists who thought it was really curious what went down in MacArthur Park. And for those that don't know what happened, it was about 10 a.m. Yesterday when we started seeing video from local journalists pop up on live feed of suspected federal agents. And it turns out it wasn't just CBP and HSI, it was 90 National Guardsmen that were out on the streets, potentially military as well. We've heard about troops being deployed, Marines at the ready in San Diego to be ready and set to go to Los Angeles. And what we saw in MacArthur Park was a raid fit for television, and what activists were telling me is that the president, he is a brilliant manipulator of the media. He knows reality TV. He had his rebirth and his resurgence because of The Apprentice. We all remember that. Some of us were old enough to remember that. And yesterday was really interesting to see, because mixed into those elements of the federal agents was somebody in tactical gear with a camera, like a very high-end camera, right? Not like me with my cell phone out there in the streets, but somebody with like a very expensive camera. And we've seen videos put online that are really, put simply, they're propaganda videos for the government to show that they are in charge, to show that they're in control. We saw one of those federal officials on the streets yesterday give an interview to Fox News. And in that, let me back up a little bit. We saw the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, show up, be handed a phone from someone there at the scene. She gets on the phone, tells whoever's on the other end, someone in charge at CBP, presumably, to call the raid off, right? Gets the phone back from that official. The official gets the phone back. They go on their way. It was all caught on camera. Fox 11, one of the affiliates there, one of the local TV stations, was rolling, and then just happened to be there when she was talking as well about, telling them to back off. And when I talk to activists, and I think this is all in good faith, this is really good faith criticism because the optics there were that the mayor has the authority and power to call off these raids, right? She's tough and she could stand up to these federal agents who have fanned across her city. But then this federal agent gets on Fox News and says, Karen Bass is not in charge of us. We don't work for the LA mayor. We work for the federal government. And that's great that what she did, but it made no difference, basically. So these activists that I spoke to, they're wondering and curious. Let's say the mayor of Los Angeles really does have the power to call off these raids, right? Let's say they really are listening. The message I'm getting from activists is, what took 32 days to speak up? It's been 32 days since these raids launched in Los Angeles. LA Taco, if you guys don't know about their reporting, the premier independent news source in Los Angeles right now. They started really sort of as a culinary site to focus on the phenomenal food scene in LA. And it's only expanded now for them to be hardcore frontline journalists in this, what they call siege of Los Angeles by the federal government. So we're joined hopefully here soon. We've got a great crowd here waiting to have this conversation with Joel Cavazos. Joel Cavazos, for those of you guys who are just joining us, we're waiting for him to join on. He's a Latino Trump supporter. Part of the reason why I wanted to use this platform, I want to lead with love and tolerance. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but for me, I've really learned in the last 4 weeks that I do have a platform, I have a voice, and you guys care about the content that I'm bringing. It's also very clear to me that I have an audience that is very wide-ranging in their political spectrum. People that are progressives, people that are, on the left, people that are on the right, people that are part of MAGA and the Maha movements. This is Joel here. Hello, I'm a huge fan since you started Substack. Okay, guys, that was Joel. Internet connection is unstable. Let me see if I can bring this back here. Here we go. Hey, Jason, thank you guys so much. I'm so sorry for the interruption. We're trying to get Joel connected. He called me to interrupt all this. It's all live happening, which I think this is what you guys want. You want to see the behind the scenes stuff. So if you guys are just joining, we are waiting to stand by for a conversation with Joel Cavazos. He is a Latino Trump supporter, somebody who has no issue with what they're seeing on the streets of Los Angeles. And you think about that, guys. Here we go. Joel Cavazos has joined, and we're waiting. Joel, if you want to accept, I've added you to be a co-host on the conversation. So you should have something in your Substack to accept the invite. And I'll try again here. Let me send you another one. Invite co-host. All right, you got another invitation here. So Joel Cavazos is joining us. He is part of the chat here right now. Hopefully we can figure this out. This is a soft launch of Nick Valencia Live. And what I intend to use this platform is to have conversations. This isn't a mainstream sort of cable yelling match. I want to see who yells louder than the other person. I didn't get told along my journey in life that the person who yells loudest wins the argument. I really want to have a discussion and a conversation. And here we go. Joel Cavazos is joining us. All right. Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Thank you, man, so much. I was just explaining to everybody, man, that I think it's really important for us to have a conversation about where you're coming from, about your perspective, about who you are. And, I don't think people know how we connected. There's a music connection between us, and we both love hip hop. We both love music. You're a music executive. You come from that background. You're an artist, and we've connected throughout fatherhood on our journey of fatherhood, on being a businessman. I've launched my new business here, and on just being Latinos in this country. And we come from different perspectives, but there's respect between us. And that's what I want to have this conversation. I want it to be a very respectful one. We've talked before we got on here. And, Joel and I have had a lot of discussions in our direct messages, and it's always a really refreshing, dynamic conversation. Even though we may not agree, we have it. And so I want to jump right into it. Unless you want to say, do you want to give an introduction a little bit about who you are, or do you want to just jump right in?
No, we could just jump right in.
Okay. So the theme of this conversation, of course, like I talked to you about, what's going on in the streets of Los Angeles, the ICE raids that we've seen. Some people are calling them an ICE siege on the left. What you've seen on the streets, tell me about your perspective. why you think it's okay what's happening, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you're supportive of what's going on. And is there any deal breaker? I mean, is there anything that you could see in the coming days, weeks, or months that would make you turn on your support for President Trump?
Well, I think that right now what's happening is necessary just because of what happened in the past administration over the past 4 years. I like to kind of like I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day, and we were saying like, hey, it's like you know, y- y- they basically burned up the trap, is how I would say it in my language, which is
Right.
they let wait. Everything was going good for all of the past generations. It was like you had people coming in illegally, but they kind of some of them were sent back, but a lot of them made it here. They were able to make families. They were able to raise their kids. Their kids had better opportunities, which is the reason that people are coming to America, anyways, is to get better opportunities. They're not going to El Salvador or Guatemala.
And really quick, Joel,
I
on your
think
background, you were born here. Your grandparents born here as
My
well,
grand
or like
no, my
how far?
grandparents and my grandparents and father, are both immigrants, and then my mom and my grandfather on that side and my grandmother are all, like, Tejanos. It goes back, like, 400 years of, like, people being from Texas. So, like, the natives mixed with the Spanish, but they weren't necessarily Mexicans. They were, like, Tejanos and stuff. So
Sure, like that.
but,
Texas is its own kind of people,
yeah,
right?
like, Texas was its own type of people kinda
Right.
per se. Like, it's basically the same bloodline, but just,
So then
um
reconcile this for me, man, because you just said your father was an immigrant, your grandparents, right, immigrants as
Right,
well, and
right.
but you're okay with what you're seeing happen on the streets, the warrantless
Well, I mean,
arrests.
like, to get
Yeah,
back to finish my point was that, like, it sucks. It sucks what's happening. But what happens is that that's what happens when you vote for a president before who decided to just go ahead and let in 12, 15 million people and just kind of like overflood our system and overflood our healthcare systems, overflood our roads and our housing system and drive up the demand for houses and drive up the demand for apartments and just like the whole thing became like a money play for big corporations like hotels that were just using the immigrants to, and so what happened is that now it's becoming an overcorrection, right? So now it's like, okay, everything was good up until 4 years ago. They let in 12 million people, and um, now they're having to go back and try to fix that, and so it does look bad in some cases. It does look bad, but they told everyone. They said, hey, if you're here illegally, go home and try to figure out a way to come back. But if we catch you here with other illegals that have been here for 10, 15 years, they're going to end up getting in trouble as well, because we're just going to go ahead and just kind of like take everyone. And so if you listen to what they've been saying, that's kind of like what they've been saying, and that's uh, basically what they're doing. And like I told you earlier on the phone, this isn't the first time. I was watching a documentary last night on American Apparel, and they were saying how in 2009 he lost like 1,500 of his employees in LA because of the ICE raids. It's happened before. Just our internet, our social media has all become so much more advanced that it's people know way more about everything that's going on now than they did in even in 2009, which was not that long ago.
I don't. So you think it's an overcorrection, right? And what you're seeing on the streets, this sort of severe pendulum swing reaction, is to the directly related to the Biden administration. You don't think anything? I mean, from my perspective, what I see just from what I've seen covering immigration for the last 2 decades, it seems like a problem that neither party wants to solve. So, if I'm being here in good faith, and that's my point of being on this platform, I
Right.
know that each president, Democrat or Republican, could have done more and has fallen short in helping solve this immigration issue. It's a crisis only when any other party is involved, right? Right now, it's a crisis for
Well, I
Republicans
don't.
because they're in
I'm not.
charge.
I'm not in complete support of it. Like, I'm not in complete support of like what they're doing right now, where they're going to the Supreme Court to fight for like to try to like get rid of the birthright citizenship. Like, I'm
Okay,
not.
so
I'm not.
let's
I'm not in
start there.
support.
Let's
I'm
pick
not
up
in
there.
support. I'm not in support of that. But like I said, it's like you go and basically in my language would be like you burn up the trap. You let all of these people in, and now everyone's looking at it, and now it's like, oh, now we're gonna have to go and ruin this thing that we had in our favor for so many years, which is like if you made it here, you were safe on base, pretty much, or your kids were at least safe on base. But and I'm not saying that it's the entire administration before us's fault, but they did let in a unprecedented amount of people and just let them in, and now you're seeing like a the pendulum, like you said, the pendulum swing back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't think that everything that they're doing is good, and I don't support everything that they're doing. But I do understand because I come from, like, my background was when I was younger, my parents are from immigrants. I got in a lot of trouble. Every single one of my cousins graduated from college except for me. We had people go to Baylor and West Point University. I got a cousin who's a general in the army. I have all of this people, and I was one of the ones that fell through the cracks. And
You didn't
you
fall through
know,
the cracks, man. You're on here, and I'm looking for your
well, yeah, but
perspective, right?
I mean,
Like, and you're a music
it took a
executive.
long time it took a long time to pull my pants up, and put my boots on it and march through the stuff. And that's kind of like what I try to tell everyone is like, it's like, hey, like, at one point in life, I had to turn myself into prison, and I had to leave a 2-month-old baby girl at the house with my wife, who's still my wife at the time, and I had to go do that because if I would have ran, then my wife and them would have been harboring a fugitive, and she would have gotten a felony for that as well, right? So if I
One of the
decided to
things you
not go,
told me yesterday off camera was that you think it's irresponsible for families knowing that there's a chance of them being deported. You think it's irresponsible for an undocumented migrant to come here, set up shop, set up a family only for this. It's basically what you're telling me and what you told me is like they've got to deal and accept the consequences with their actions. And that's kind of where
right.
you're going right now, right? Like
Well, I
you
mean,
as
I remember when we were younger, we were coming up, and you knew someone that was illegal. They weren't running around screaming how illegal they were and trying to like use the benefits and the rights and all of this stuff of the country, right? I live on the border of Texas and Mexico in the Rio Grande Valley, which is like everyone was so surprised that it flipped like 90% for Trump this past year,
I
right?
wasn't spending time
And,
down
and
there, you know, it's people,
but
there's a lot
we're
of
like,
conservative voices down there.
it's hard working people, and everyone here is immigrants, but everyone here basically either waited their turn to get here, and it's become, like this like area of, it's beautiful. I love it here. I mean, you go to the store and you got to speak Spanish to go to the corner store or drive through a drive through here, which I think is beautiful. We're in America, and you still have to learn. You still have to know Spanish to communicate with people, but it's still also like it just is what it is. Like I said, if you come here, it is irresponsible. If you came here in the past 4 years knowing everything that was happening, it's irresponsible for you to. It's like when the riots happened and everyone was rioting and people were running inside of stores or whatever, or you could even say like on the January 6th, where everyone's like, it was irresponsible for those people to go in, even though some people say they were invited or not. It was irresponsible. They knew the consequences that they were getting into, and they had to go do time. And yes, they got pardoned, but they all did a lot of time for that, right? And it's the same as this is where it's like, that you're coming here wrong. And I go to Mexico at least twice a month. I'm looking to buy property down there. I have a business down there, and I never go to Mexico without my passport. Right. And when you get there, they ask your passport, they ask how long you're going to be there. Um, if you're there too long, you're going to have to leave. They're going to kick you out. They're not going to just, they're not going to give you a steak dinner if they end up removing you out of the country. They're not going to give you a steak dinner and put you in a
No
five-star
one's getting
hotel.
steak dinners though. Wait. Like, well, this conversation's in good faith. You said a lot of stuff, and I want to pick up because I think the theme of what you're talking about is sort of
Right.
the American dream for thee, but not for me, right? And is it a resources issue for you, Joel? Do you not think that there's enough resources here in the country for this? You've allowed so many millions of undocumented immigrants to come into the country, Biden administration. There's not enough room. I mean, is it that
It's not
part of
that
the
there's not
issue?
enough room. I think that there's not enough. It's not enough room. I mean, that conversation goes way deeper, right? Like how much foreign aid we're giving to everyone. If we stopped helping the rest of the world, we could help everyone else right here. That's for sure. But that's not what we're gonna do, you know. And in the meantime, it's like people say, "Oh, well, the U.S. citizens commit as many crimes as the immigrants." That's true, but they're from here, and that's something we should be dealing with. You know what I mean? And
So
right now,
let's
these
pick up
past
on
few years.
that because if we're using the conservative argument that one is too many, like we saw with Lake and
Well, I
Riley,
don't say.
one
I'm not
undocumented.
saying that one is too many.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm not saying that one is too many. You know, that's like what I was saying back about the birthright citizenship, and that's what I was saying was that for these past, as far decades and decades and decades you go back, everything was fine. People would come over, they would have kids, their kids would end up being citizens, everything was fine. And then they ended up flooding the system so much that now things aren't going to be fine. And now we had a clear path to like slowly but surely, like everyone's like, oh, this used to be Mexico. This was our country. Well, guess what? If we would have just took our time and been patient, in 100 years, we would have been there would have been 200-300 million of us here. But now they're looking to stop the birthright citizenship because people wanted to just rush across and not wait in line. And people like Venezuela wanted to empty their jails and send them over here. I mean, it's people. Dude, last year when I went to Mexico, there's a little city called Progreso. People go over there to get
I know
antibiotics. You go over
Progreso,
there to
yeah.
have
I
some
know
so
Progreso. I've been there
Progreso.
before.
What last time when I was in Progreso last year, before Trump came into office, there was about 15,000 people from Ukraine lined up at the border in tents, like wearing like Balenciaga and Prada and all these like super rich people from the Ukraine. Like it's not just Latinos. The Latinos are the ones fighting for it because there's more of us here than everyone else. But the issue that's going on right now isn't just because of the Latinos. It isn't just Mexicans. Mexico for a long time has had like a net zero
I'm
immigration
glad
where
you
there's,
said
there's
that,
just
Joel,
many of us
because it
going there.
feels as though people in the Latino community feel as though it is a purge of our community,
Right,
especially starting in Los Angeles. We know that immigration spans colors of skin, backgrounds, socioeconomics. People are literally trying, like my grandfathers, both of them, coming to America, both of them illegally, by the way, and
right,
try to get a better life, right?
right,
And here I am 3 generations later
right,
contributing to America. The
right.
thing though that you talk about, like the system used to work and now it's been flooded. Talking about back in the day, man, in the 90s, it used to be with ICE raids, it used to be like a sheriff that showed up to go get the brown guy or the wetback or whatever with a revolver. And now it's a fucking paramilitary force on the
Right.
streets.
Overcorrection.
That's different. And that's dangerous. That escalates a situation, that escalates the opportunity for things to go sideways.
Well,
This journalist, is actually shocked that there hasn't been people that have been seriously hurt throughout the course of all of this stuff. It's heightened the tensions and what's going on, and that's the reality on the streets.
that's true. You could look at it like that. Another way to look at it is that those, besides for the National Guard that has been called in, the rest of the forces that are used against American citizens every day. I mean, I've had my house raided, and it was a battering ram, and people in and with machine guns pointed at you, making you get naked on the ground for selling weed. For something that's illegal in some states, right? So you can always, there's always two sides to everything. So of course you can look at anything and be like, oh, this is horrible. You know what I mean? This is so horrible. But it's like they also do that to American citizens every day.
Man,
If you're up to no good, if you're doing something wrong and you get caught for it, you're gonna get in trouble. And the force that the police use, whether it's with African Americans or Mexican Americans or Venezuelan Americans or Colombian Americans or Haitian Americans or white Americans. They're like, they're everyone, if you get in trouble and they come to your house and you don't answer the door, they're coming inside. You know? I mean, I've had times in California where with my music house where I had 10, 15 young people underneath the age of from 18 to 25 and have had the SWAT team show up with two helicopters. And I mean, is a helicopter really necessary, right? Like, I mean, it's the same thing. We could say the same thing about the local police and everything. The problem is that what's happening is that these cities like LA, which is always going to be an issue because there's more immigrants in LA and in California than any other state. So it's
yeah.
always going to be a bigger issue there. It's always going to look like more. It's always going to look deeper than what it really is. But the, they use those helicopters and everything on American citizens every day. If you're in LA, you see helicopters being used for car wrecks,
You're right.
for armed robberies, for
You're right.
everything.
You see
Every
that,
single
and
day.
you've spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. I grew up there first 21 years. You look up in the sky, it's sort of the hum. There's a lot more helicopters these days, man. I'm just going to tell you anecdotally from what I
Mhm.
see from my perspective. I want to just do a quick reset here. If you guys are just joining us, I'm Nick Valencia, an independent journalist, joined by Joel Cavazos. He is a Latino who supports Trump, and we're talking about what's going on the streets of Los Angeles, the ICE raids, the federal agents that have fanned across the city. Joel thinks that what's happening right now, although potentially somewhat, the pendulum has swung a little far. He thinks that this is necessary, and what's happening right now is necessary to right the sort of flooding of what we saw, in his words, under the Biden administration. A great conversation so far. I love having you on because you're so dynamic and you have such an interesting background. Can you talk to me about whether or not there's any deal breakers for you? Is there anything that you see potentially? I mean, we've talked about
I've said
birthright
that. I've said that.
citizenship. Is there anything that is a deal breaker for you that would keep you or that would make you lose your support for President Trump?
Well, I think I'm not as Trump supporter is like that, right? Like there's a lot of things that Trump does that I
Interesting.
don't agree with, right? I'm
Yeah.
not just like sitting here just running around just like living and dying Trump. I have daughters and I have daughters
Because
in college.
that's the
I have
idea, right? Is
businesses
that
and
you guys are a cult and you support Trump, and how could you be so deranged? And we all have Trump derangement syndrome. You
right.
know, like set the record for yourself. Speak for yourself. Go for it.
Well, I mean, well, I think that you're starting to see that more on the right than you are on the left, which is like you're starting to see people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and people like Tim Dillon, like call out Trump for what he's doing wrong. You don't seem to see that on the left, right? When the left is doing something wrong, CNN and everyone's just going right along with it, and all the people on the right are calling them out. And now, when you're starting to see this new president and President Trump that everyone supported, and now he's doing things like trying to end birthright citizenship. A lot of us aren't down for that. The big beautiful bill, which had the AI clause in it that none of us really liked, and all of a sudden, Sam Altman's over there at his uh inauguration, and all of a sudden now there's this little poison pill in the big beautiful bill that's saying like I'm not a Trumper like that. I just understand that with the immigration issue it's an overcorrection and we're just going to have to deal with it because this is what we chose as a nation to elect the last president who did an overcorrection as far as just letting the borders be open. And so you have to recognize that fact, which is like, okay, 12 million people come in when it's usually probably like 150, 200,000 a year. Okay, so we just did, you know, uh, that's 5 times 12. We did 60 years worth of people coming into this country in 4 years. I mean, people are gonna be like, there's always going to be an overcorrection. So
Man, the numbers,
there's a lot of deal breakers.
I know people say numbers don't lie, but when it comes to immigration, man, sometimes even folks like me who have spent time on the border, who have talked to the officials at the highest level, I don't know what to believe. We used to call Obama in our community the deporter in chief, but then someone corrected me on that, saying that the way they counted deportations, they counted, people that just came across and were put right immediately back in Mexico. So was it actually 300,000 undocumented immigrants that Obama deported? Was it Eisenhower numbers like back in the 40s? I don't know. Why is it a competition of trying to kick people out of this country or trying to do
Which,
good? And that's where I want to pick up because you're talking about not, we're in good faith here, man. You're talking about not wholeheartedly being a zealot of Trump. So when the president tells you that he's going to go after the criminals and he starts going after the cooks, people say, "What the fuck, man?" They're like, what?
yeah,
Why? Why?
I said the same thing. I said what the fuck. I said the same thing, but it's not a what the fuck. Now we have to go, tear everything down. It's a what the fuck. Like hopefully he fixes it. Which now, if you people nowadays in the news cycle and in today's world with the internet and social media, everybody is an instant gratification people, right? And that's why
Yeah,
people our age, I'm 45, you're in
I'm
your
41.
40s, 41,
41. Yeah.
people our age are preaching to our kids like, hey, it's not going to happen as fast as you think it is, and you need to take your time. And so what's happening is in today's 24-hour news cycle, people are getting they're not waiting to hear what's going on. It's like now you're starting to see Trump and Tom Homan say, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to not go after the farm workers. I guess we're going to have to not go after the hotel workers. I guess we're going to have to not go after like they're starting to name, they keep
But then
adding
the
a
raids
new.
still continue in Oxnard and Democratic areas, and then in the Central Valley, where there's
Mhm,
tons of undocumented laborers surrounded
mhm.
by Trump supporters, they're
Right.
untouched. I'm on my
Right.
way to the line of
But they
California
just
next
started
week,
saying
so
this. They
that's
started
like
saying this
speaking out of
last
both
week.
sides of our mouth, right? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, like, but no, but that's what I'm saying about being patient, which is like they just started talking about this about, maybe last week or the week before. So it does take some time, right? Things take time for them to say, okay, right. It's once you can't turn a ship on a dime. Ships take a while to turn, especially these giant ships, these giant barges. It's not like
Yeah.
a speedboat. You can't just turn it on a dime. It's not like a car. It's not like it's like an 18 wheeler, right? Like when you're
Or
in your truck,
747, man. You know?
747, for it to turn it, you start to feel it turn and it takes some time. By the time you turn, you're on the other side of the city coming back around towards the airport. Things take time. And that's what's happening in today's news cycle is that no one's waiting for the things to happen. Everything's going to settle into place, I believe. And if it doesn't, then I'll be the first one to speak out. I spoke out about Obama when I was a young kid. I spoke out about what Biden was doing. I'm definitely having talks with my own family and my wife and my mom about some of the things that I don't like about what Trump's doing. I mean, I'm really worried about the birthright citizenship because I always felt like that was our golden ticket to one day, you know, have more Latinos in this country than any other place was a birthright citizenship. And like I said, but you have to look at the context of the situation. If they go take that away, that's everyone's fault for voting for somebody who was just going to let in so many people at the border. And you can't just say, oh, it's this person's fault for overcorrecting this person's overcorrect. Like it's just a big mess. And that's another problem too. But the other problem too is that everyone's just so mad at America. I said this the other day, like you see all these people burning flags and they're Latinos. And I say there's two type of Latinos in this country. There's the Latinos who at some point your family migrated here.
Yeah.
So you're either a Latino whose family came here and made something themselves, or you're a Latino who grew up off of government assistance and they haven't made something themselves. But maybe you're the person that's gonna make something of themselves, right? There's
Those are
only two.
broad strokes we're painting here,
But that's all it could.
right?
No, I'm saying
Okay.
that's all. No, I'm saying if you made something of yourself, I'm saying even if it's you had a job and you sent your kids to college and you worked hard and maybe they have a college debt, but you're the next generation was able to level up. Or the other side is you needed a little bit of help, and so you got help. Both of those sides should love America for that, right? There's no reason why if you grew up with a doctor and you were able to go to the doctor, which is why people come here because they can't afford doctors in places like Mexico, or if you grew up on this side and you were able to go to college because your father crossed the border and worked as a cook or even as a CEO or whatever it was, both sides should agree that you shouldn't be burning the flag of the country that you want to be in either. Like
Sure,
to me, that's just like,
absolutely.
bro, like.
And I don't think I don't know why. I mean, I understand why people burn flags, but I'm not a supporter of that. I think also what I want to pick up is themes of what you're talking about. You're talking about adversity, and you've talked a lot about adversity. And for me, if we're painting with broad strokes, I think in the Latino community, there are two types of Latinos, yes, and there are those of us, all of us have faced adversity. And there's the type of Latino who has faced adversity and says, that has made me and built my character. Others should go through it too, and they got to sack up and they've got to, pick up their pants and do it by the bootstraps. There's the other Latino who has been through adversity and wants nothing more than to shield people from going through the same thing. And so, do you agree with that? And do you think that adversity, this kind of
Yeah,
adversity,
I agree with both of those, but I don't think that crying like a little bitch in the streets is going to do anything about it.
okay,
You know what I mean? Like, you feel me? Like, I agree with both things. I think that yeah,
is
there's people that are
proximity to
me.
whiteness going to
I'm
save
the
us
poor.
then, Joel?
I'm the huh?
Is proximity to whiteness going to save us? I mean, my parents thought it would, and I
Proximity
learned
to
in my life.
whiteness.
I'm Nicholas Aaron.
There's more poor broke white people in this country than there is anyone else. So how is that
Yes,
going to
and
save
and
any?
we should have a whole discussion and conversation about them.
Yeah.
I
So
totally
that
agree with
the
you.
proximity, the race issues null and void in America nowadays. I won't engage in it, and I don't want to have anything to do with it because it's all a lie and it's all just there to make people mad. There's no one has an advantage over anyone in this country right now.
That's
Everyone.
your that's your fundamental belief
That's
as
my
yep,
fundamental belief,
yep.
bro. You know what I mean? I mean, you could. It's. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I don't believe
And
that.
so when I hear things like that, I think about the analogy of the classroom, right? And this analogy that was given a long time ago, and that there's a classroom and there's all these kids in the classroom and there's a basket in front, a trash bin, right? And every student has a crumpled up piece of paper and they all get one shot at the basket, right? And so the kids in the front, they're going to have an easier time to make it. And the kids in the back, it's going to be a harder shot. Some of those kids in the back are going to sink it, right? They're going to swish the basket. Some of those kids in the front, they're going to miss it. But the idea that we all have this equal position in life that we come from, I think that's a fallacy. And I think if we don't recognize that, we
Well,
get into
but
situations.
where in nature do you see equal positions in any part of life?
Okay,
Where
let's speak on that.
where does anyone see equal positions in anywhere in the world? If there's a tree, if there's a little tree growing outside in the forest, it dies because it doesn't get any sunlight because the other ones grew tall enough. If there's a cat born with something wrong with it in the jungle, a pig's gonna eat it, or his parents are gonna eat it, or if there's a deer born with a broken leg, a cat. I mean, where in life is nothing's. It's like I told you the other day. All of us are very blessed to have been born here in America. We could have been born in
Amen. I
India.
am
We
so
could have been
grateful
born.
you said that.
We
Yes,
could have been born in communist
anywhere.
China. We could have been born in Russia. Who knows where? I believe in God. Who knows where God was going to send our soul to be at?
I
So
believe in God too.
so
That's the other
so
thing.
we're
We've
all very
connected on
blessed
our
to be
faith.
here. So the fact of complaining that you had it a little bit harder or way harder than someone else who had it a little bit easier. I mean, if you have it easier, it's because of your parents, usually, right? And so a lot of the time I tell people like, you're mad. I mean, bro, if anyone's my age, that means you were born in the 80s, late
Right.
70s, or late 80s, right?
Right.
Okay, by that time, if you're, I don't care what color you are, if your parents hadn't made something of themselves, you need to be blaming it more on your parents than to anyone else. Like, why didn't you put me in a position to be better? Why didn't you put me in a position to be more of a winner than not? Like, why
So if we
is
can
it?
connect on something, I do agree that a lot of this stuff starts in the household, right? If we're talking about humanity, and we've connected on fatherhood, on faith, and I try to teach my daughter and son to be good people and to help others who can't stand up for themselves. We just stood up for you know about this story, this woman who was hit with a stick next to us. My instinct was to stand up for the underdog. I got
Yep,
punched in the mouth, right? You know,
yep.
and like it was crazy, but like should we not help stand up for the underdog? I guess I don't know if I'm making
No, we
sense.
should.
Yeah.
We should help stand up for the underdog, but to think that everything's always going to be completely fair, that you're basically fighting a fight that'll never be won. That's a forever war. It's just not. The world will never be fair. The only person that can level that out is you as a person. The person themselves is the only person that can make the world be somewhat fair. It's never fair. You know what I mean? Like
And I agree
nothing's
with
ever
that.
going
You
to be
know, I
fair.
pray every day. I put faith and I rely on God, but I know it takes more than God. It takes action for me. I need to make the steps. I need to have the willingness. And part of that is the willingness to have conversations like this with the platform that I have. You know, I accept the burden, the responsibility. For those that join late, we're joined by Joel Cavazos, a Latino who supports Trump, a conservative. He doesn't agree with everything that the president is doing, but he thinks that this overcorrection that's happening on the streets of Los Angeles is necessary and that people
There's,
need to
by
sort
the
of get
way,
used to it.
sorry, there's someone here commenting something about me being. I'm not a Republican. I'm a felon. I don't vote. Um,
I
I
guess
don't
we should
vote.
have made that
He
clear.
said grow up and seek therapy.
Yeah.
Republicans don't.
Hey, look,
I
man,
would
don't worry
never.
about the chat.
I know. I'm
People
just
are
saying.
engaging.
I just want to, engage them a little bit because they're here.
Right.
I would never seek therapy. Someone that needs to go talk to someone else that doesn't know you to help yourself with your own life. You sound like a pussy to me. You know what I
Look,
mean?
man,
Like,
look.
you know
Hey,
what I
this
mean?
is all in good faith and with respect. We don't need
Yeah,
to personally tear anyone down. Please, if you
yeah.
guys want to be in the chats, be respectful. I mean, this is the
Yeah, I
platform.
wasn't
I
calling
really
him that
do.
name. I was saying that's the way I talk. I talk, like I have kids that are in college, and I spent my whole life for a long time. I would argue with my mom or my wife about the language I used around them. And if they were
I'm
acting
not going to judge
if
you for
if
it, man. I grew up
if
around
they were
people like
acting like
you.
a bitch, I'd say, "Hey, why are you being a bitch?" And they'd be like, "Hey, you're calling us a bitch," and I'd say, "No, you're acting like one." And I'd say, "There's a difference." But now that they're in the real world, they're prepared. They're not in shock when someone's like, "Hey, why are you acting like this?" They're like, they've seen way tougher with their father, and as a father, that's your role. And that takes me back to what I was saying, is that it's like, if you're having a hard time in life, you really need to turn around and look at your parents and ask why they didn't prepare you for life the way they should have. Like my mom was very, very, very hard on me, and I still ended up falling through the cracks, and I still ended up spending a lot of time in prison and a lot of my life on the clandestine side of the world. And it took me a long, long time of digging myself out of the mud and raising my kids and learning more perspectives and more nuance to the whole conversation and everything, to really realize, like, hey, there's only one person that's going to save you in this world, and that's when you become an adult, and it's yourself. Like,
Yeah, there's no
period.
superheroes that are coming to save us, right? Like we're the
Right?
superheroes for our family. So I do,
Exactly.
I do get that, and I understand with the language, man. I mean, I'd rather not us use that kind of language on our platform here,
Right.
but I get it, man. I mean, I think one of the things that was attractive to people to vote for the president now was that there was this big issue being made of political correctness, right, and trying to shield us from the tougher side of life. I connected with you, I think, because in part, I grew up around a lot of people who went on to vote for President Trump. 2001 was my graduating class. A lot of Latino kids that I played varsity football with ended up being the first boots on the ground in Afghanistan and Iraq. And it exposed me to, they were molded and shaped by conservatism, within the military. And they vote that way. They ended up being police officers. I don't I look at them as a person and I try to look at the totality of a person, which is the same with you, man. We connect and disagree on several things. And, it doesn't matter though, because I know that you are moving in good faith as a person and you really do want to try to add value, even though I disagree with some of the things. And there's
Right.
people
Of course,
clearly
I disagree. I disagree with a
in
lot
the
of stuff
chat.
that you say as well. But
I know.
I think that's the problem, is that nowadays, like people are so they're so involved in their political teams that they feel
It's
like
sport politics, man.
they can't
Yeah.
even be friends. They can't even be friends with people that are from the other side. And I just don't believe that. Like me and you have great conversations. And every time you do something that I don't think is cool, I say, not that you do something I don't think is cool, not like that, but like you'll post like something, I say, hey, don't forget this side of that story or
Right.
don't forget
Right.
this, right? But that does never mean that I'm looking at you saying, like, golly, like I don't like that guy. Like he's a bad character. It's like, no, I understand that everyone has the right to have that's why everyone's coming here. Why does everyone want to come here? Everyone wants to come here for a better life and for free speech and to be able to believe what you want to believe. I don't think that anyone shouldn't. I think that everyone should be able to believe what they want to believe. As far as the immigration issue, it really sucks that they flooded the system over the past few years and now there's a giant overcorrection. If it continues and it keeps up and all of a sudden we look up and all of a sudden they're figuring out ways to send back American citizens, I'm going to be the first to stand up. I'm going to be the first to march. I'm going to be the first to probably leave the country, right? I'm already looking for a place in Mexico City and get working on my passport, dual citizenship. And
Is there
I think
anything?
that's
I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead. Go ahead, Joel.
no, I think that that's something that people should also do is that like, hey, like stick to your guns. Like if you really don't like it here and you're going to go outside and burn flags and all that, like, well, why don't you leave? But people don't want to leave because they
The
because they
flag burning stuff. I don't think that many people are burning flags. I mean, like I was watching
in
the West
LA,
Wing. That was like a cool thing 20 years
you've seen
ago.
a lot of people. I follow a lot of street taggers and
Okay,
graffiti
okay.
people, and they're
Um,
posting a lot of it.
before we, you can't believe everything on the internet, especially with AI. You have sent me some AI videos that you're like, man, our grandparents would be tripping about this stuff. Before we go, you've been so gracious with your time, Joel. This is the first of many conversations. The chat's blowing up, man. We're going to repost this, and hopefully, a lot more people will see this conversation. I think it's an important one. Before I let you go, um, to dovetail off one of the questions in the chat, some people think that it's the Democratic Party's failure, and a lot is to blame on the Democratic Party for not doing enough to win the Latino support. And they took advantage of our vote. You see, 55% of Latino men voted for President Trump. Is there anything that the Democrats can do to win people like you back, to win people like your friends who vote? Is there anything that you see that the Dems can do to try to bring you guys back in? How can they course correct?
I think the problem is that most immigrants, from what I remember, and the immigrants I grew up with, were never Democrats. I mean, they came over, they were hardworking people. They didn't want a handout. They don't need a handout, right? I think it's the new generations and the second and third and fourth generation Latinos that are now have been here for generations. And their parents have been, their great grandparents got here in the early 1900s. And now they're in a city like Los Angeles where there's just as many immigrants, but there's also a lot of people that aren't immigrants. And I think that those people are more likely to become a Democrat than the people that are like coming here. That's why I'm from the Rio Grande Valley, Texas. There's so many immigrants here, and all of them are Republicans because no one's looking for a handout. And I think that that's the problem. Is that why is it such a shock that that people aren't Democrats? Well, I mean, the Democrats are all about I mean, we can go into all of their other issues that they have about all of the the LGBTQ stuff that a lot of Latinos don't like, right?
We'll say
But
that for another conversation, I think,
yeah, we can
and
say
there's
that
so
for
much
another
stuff that we
yeah,
left out.
there's but the problem is that these people are coming here to work. Like you go to my friend owns a giant construction company and they're here to work. A lot of them are here to work and they're not here to take a handout. And it sucks that, like I said, there's overcorrection, but I think getting them to become somebody that's going to then in turn teach their kids to want a handout and think that everything's going to be fair in life, I think that just goes against most Latinos morals or like internal compass. I don't feel that it's like this whole like, hey, we all need help. We all need to be equal. Like that's never going to happen. We don't come from countries where that's been, Mexico, the Mexico middle class is basically non-existent. You're either poor or rich in Mexico. And so people are coming from countries where it's already like that. That's what they know. That's what they know of, and they're very religious people and they don't believe in getting a handout from government. They believe in asking God for help and doing it on their own. So I don't think that the Democrats I don't think that Latinos have ever really just been like a majority that, like I said, maybe it's a second and third generation American Latinos that are more Democrats than I would say like the immigrants and stuff like that, or first generations or people that were raised by their immigrant grandparents or, like my grandma was My grandma was here for 40 years. She never learned English and never took a dime of help from the government, right? Like
What's
none of
really
us had.
interesting, you say it's like proximity to the border. The Rio Grande Valley is basically Mexico, right? This man-made line that drew Texas. I mean, it's
Right.
basically Mexico, right? And I've
Right.
been there, and I went to go cover back in 2018 or 2019 a story about Latinos for Trump. There was
Yeah.
a whole movement there growing there, and we put a spotlight on it. And I think we were sort of ahead of our time. Joel, thank you so much, man. I'm so grateful for conversations and discussions like this. You guys, thank you for joining our conversation and discussion. If you missed it, if you liked it, please like it, share it, subscribe, all the things that you're supposed to do now to help amplify this platform. I'm Nick Valencia, an independent journalist. You had just watched the first episode of Nick Valencia Live. This is our soft launch. We're joined by Joel Cavazos, a Latino for Trump. And we had a conversation here that hopefully you guys learned a lot about. Thank you guys so much for joining. Joel, you want to say anything? You want to give a
God bless
plug or anything
everybody.
like
I
that?
hope everything works. God bless everybody. I hope everything works out. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I am a probably on the right side of beliefs. So
All right.
everybody have a good day. Everybody stay blessed. Take care of yourselves, and let's see what happens. Stay
Yo, dog.
patient.
God bless you, man. Have a great day on purpose, everybody.
Later.